There is absolutely power in the name of Jesus. There is absolutely power in telling your body that it has to obey you. It's scary to see your newborn baby just turn white. Got up that morning and I said, devil, you get your hands off of my son. Hello lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. As you can see, we have a new member to the crew. This is Gabriel Elias Garcia, and you've stirred up quite the ruckus on the internet. My birth video is currently at like 16,000 views. I just can't even believe it. Caramel's probably gonna join us for a little bit, but yeah, so I have so many things I want to say. Thank you for being here. If you're new to my channel because of that video, hi and welcome. Love having you here, and I'm so appreciative of each and every one of you that prayed for Gabriel in the following week after he was born. If you follow me over on Instagram, you would have known that there was a little bit of a situation that happened after he was born, but we'll get into that. I'm gonna give you some details about his birth and just like catch up a little bit, because I feel like it's been so long since I've recorded. It really has been a long time. It's been like 6 weeks. I think he's 6 weeks this week. It's hard to keep track with the third baby, but yeah, I can't believe we're a family of 5. That absolutely blows my mind. So anyhow, this is little Gabriel. He was born on December 11th at 8:34 p.m. and I went into labor early that morning, like at 3 a.m. or so. Labor started officially, then it stalled out, and I went into active labor at 4:30 p.m. I think it was, and he was born just 4 hours later. So relatively short labor, not quite as short as Addie's was, but it was definitely very short. And he's getting so big and so strong, I can't even believe he's sitting up right now, just on my knee, just chilling. But he was 6 pounds and 14 ounces when he was born. He has grown very quickly. He's gained probably over this by now, but at his 1 a month appointment, which was a couple weeks ago now, he weighed 10 pounds. What did he weigh? 10 pounds and 14 ounces or so. So he nearly gained like 2 whole pounds in 1 month. And he had also lost some weight that first week. So he gained like a total of 4 pounds, which was crazy. And then he was 19.5 inches long when he was born. And now he is 21.5 inches long. He's actually probably longer than that now. Completely outgrown newborn clothes, completely outgrown newborn diapers. And he's a chunk. He's a big boy. Look at this. Whoa, sorry. Look at this chunk. Look at this chunk. Look at this little boy. He's so cute. His little shirt is appropriately says hello. He's saying hello for the first time to the video. So anyways, we absolutely love him. The girls adore you, right? It took Addie a little bit of time to warm up to him, but Bethany right away, she was just so happy about having a little brother, another little baby, huh? And you're just so happy. You just woke up and he ate and he's all happy to be here. Huh? You have anything you want to say? You want to say anything? He started smiling this week and it is the cutest thing ever. And talking a lot more, like cooing and stuff. So what made my birth supernatural? I guess that's something I kind of want to address, and I kind of want to tell you guys what happened. I want to tell you what happened the week after he was born, because it was intense. It was a lot, and it was just like so overwhelming, and I didn't even really know. First of all, my camera broke the week before I had him, so I didn't have my camera and I couldn't record. And not to mention, it was just so much to process, and it was a lot emotionally, and I didn't know quite how to put into words like what had happened, and it made me really doubt, like, you know, I believed for my birth to go a certain way, and it did, but then there were a lot of other things that happened, and I was like really questioning, you know, why it happened. And so basically I consider my birth to be supernatural. Are you talking to me? So what is it that made me consider that my birth was supernatural? First of all, I believed for a supernatural childbirth, and it's what I got. I have to show you. He's just so cute. Are you going to talk?
Are you gonna talk? Huh? Are you going to talk to us? Say hello. Oh, oh. You were just talking so cute. You see yourself? Wow.
Okay, so what was it that caused my birth to be supernatural? Well, number one, I had confessions that I wrote out exactly of how I wanted my birth to go and exactly what I was believing for. And I wrote it out, and then I made a birth confession on that, and I got a bunch of scriptures to back up what I was believing. And I also kept my mind really in the right space for the entirety of my pregnancy. And I read a book over and over. Every pregnancy I've read this book over and over. It's called Supernatural Childbirth by Mize. I'll link it down below. And that was really what started me on the journey to believing for a pain-free birth and a pain-free labor. And I experienced pain-free birth and pain-free labor almost completely with my second baby. My first birth was very much a natural birth, very much painful. And it wasn't that way with Adeline. So I was like, I know that I can experience this again. And I just believed for it, and it happened. And I had Gabriel with relatively very little pain. I had pain when they were checking my cervix, but my whole labor from start to finish up until like 15 minutes before I pushed him out was pain-free. The last 15 minutes were painful, and it was because I got a little bit scared at the end, and I also was not able to give birth in the position that I wanted to give birth in, and I really let it get to my head a lot, but it's just because I really wanted to be upright and I wanted to be giving birth in the tub. And so because I was so worried about that in my mind, I started experiencing some pain. Not only that, but I also had to take a midwife's brew to kind of kick my labor back off. Not that I had to, but I chose to take it, and it had castor oil in it. And castor oil can cause some pain in labor because it basically causes your intestines and your stomach to cramp. Your abdominal muscles start cramping a lot, and it kind of kicks off labor in a very brisk manner, and it's not something I would choose to do again if I had the opportunity to. I would probably just chill out and be like, okay, baby's gonna come when baby wants to come. The thing was, we were kind of concerned about him being born and my midwife not making it, because I was still in labor, and labor never really stalled fully. I was still having contractions, and midwife's brew does not work unless you're ready to go into labor. So needless to say, that's why I ended up having some pain at the end of my labor. So what else was supernatural? I also, if you saw the video of my labor, when my water broke, it was because my husband commanded it to break. He laid his hands on my belly, and you can't see it in the video, but he actually whispers and commands my water to break. And when he did, it actually broke like within seconds of him saying it, and it was exactly at 8 p.m. and then he was born at 8:34. So he was born like 34 minutes later. It was fast after that, huh? You came flying out. So I'm getting sidetracked here. Basically what I did to have a supernatural childbirth was I read that book, Supernatural Childbirth, and I got my head in the right space. I also listened to a podcast called Supernatural Childbirth Mamas, and that really helped me to hear other stories of women who had experienced supernatural births. And then I also made my confessions. So I wrote them out, exactly what I wanted to have happen in my birth, and then I made an audio recording of those things and listened to it consistently. I would have listened to it more often had I made it earlier in my pregnancy, but I only made that confession like a month before I had him or something like that, maybe 2 months before. And then what I did is I did something crazy. I just really believed that it would happen, and I left no room for doubt in my mind. And I did this with Adeline as well. And at this point, with Addie, I hadn't experienced what I had already experienced, like with this baby. I had not experienced a pain-free birth. I had a birth that was very, very painful. It was a home birth. All of my births have been home births, but it was very painful. And I just put it in my mind that it would happen, even though I hadn't experienced it yet. So you don't have to have it You don't have to have a previous experience to actually experience it again. Do you see what I'm saying? Because otherwise nobody would ever have amazing things happen to them. So I just really believed, and I left no room for doubt. And then going back to the list of why it was a supernatural birth and labor, I was dilated. I commanded my body to dilate before I was even in labor, and that happened. I was dilated to a 6, almost a 7, my appointment before I had him. And hold on, we gotta feed baby. We're gonna nurse him while I talk to keep him nice and happy. So I was dilated to a 6, almost a 7, the Thursday before I had him, and that was absolutely amazing. It was far further than I thought I was dilated, and I think that's the reason why my labors are short, because I command my body to do what it needs to do before it actually starts putting in heavy work. So the morning when my midwife checked me, like right when she got here, super early in the morning, she checked me, and I was at a 6 or a 7 the few days before, and when she checked me that morning I was at an 8. And then when labor stalled out, I kind of went back to like a 7.5, but it didn't really close up very much. And so anyways, I was basically at the point of transition in early labor. The point of transition is where you usually see women screaming, and you usually will throw up, or you just feel like you can't do it and all this stuff. That's when like active labor really kicks off. Or not active labor, but during active labor transition happens, and then right after that you're like almost ready to have a baby. And so I was already at that point, and I was at like a 9 when I was like in the bathtub, if you saw the video. And what was happening is my cervix was not dilating the way it was supposed to, and it started to swell up on one side. And that's when my husband commanded my water to break, and it broke. You can see the whole thing in the video. You just like, the only indication that it had broken was I just kind of like looked up at him, because I felt a little pop. It felt like a little water balloon popping on the inside. And I remember the sensation when I was having Adeline, because the same thing happened, but I was already pushing her out when my water broke, and this happened before I was even pushing. And it was just very peaceful, very calm. My midwife didn't believe me that it had broken, because she checked me and she was like, I still feel the bag of water. And I was like, but I felt it break. And what we think happened is that it tore. It started tearing, and then she checked me, she took her hand out, and then it broke fully. So anyways, I just had an amazing labor. My labor was very short and everything. I had early labor for like a few hours, and it stalled out just a little bit, and then it picked back up by 4 p.m. and I had him at 8:30. So you can absolutely have a supernatural birth if that's what you're believing for. You can tell your body what to do. You can tell it to dilate, to efface. You can tell your body how you want your birth to go, and it has to listen to you. I said that in my home birth video, and that's exactly what happened. So what happened after I had him? I had essentially right after I had him, and I cut the video, I ended up having a retained placenta, and they ended up needing to remove my placenta manually. It was a manual extraction without painkillers, and it was very, very, very painful. I do not recommend at all, and that was pretty traumatic. Then right after they removed my placenta, I started hemorrhaging. And if you have heard any of my stories on my channel in the past, I actually had a postpartum hemorrhage with Bethany 5 days after I had her, and I had started to bleed pretty heavily like right when I had her. So this was similar. I started bleeding pretty heavily right after they removed my placenta. But I have to go get one of the girls woke up, and I'm not done filming, so let me get them situated and I'll be right back. Okay, Adeline is still sleeping. Bethany is gonna watch VeggieTales on my phone for a little bit while I finish up. So anyways, the whole thing with my placenta was actually very scary. My husband, because my midwife saw what happened when my husband prayed over my womb and commanded my water to break, she said, okay, Roberto, command the bleeding to stop. Because she had already given me a shot to stop the bleeding. She had also given me a pill to put in my mouth. And I don't remember the name of the pill, but the shot was Pitocin. And I don't remember it was something to help the bleeding stop. And it wasn't working, neither one. And normally one or the other will work. And I kind of saw, like, I saw the franticness in their faces, and it was not pleasant to like be the one that's happening to, you know, and it's already happened to me once. And I was scared, but I remembered what I had confessed over my body. I actually told my body in my confessions that I would not hemorrhage. And he prayed over me, and the bleeding stopped. He told it to stop, and it stopped in the name of Jesus. And there is absolutely power in the name of Jesus. There is absolutely power in telling your body that it has to obey you, because he gave us that authority. So anyways, needless to say, the bleeding stopped and everything, and I was holding Gabriel, and I was just so happy and excited to have our baby boy, and Bethany got to meet him and everything. And when the whole thing happened with my placenta, we took her out of the room. So we took Bethany out of the room when that happened, and then what ended up happening is I was holding Gabriel, and I kept observing him. You know, he was breathing, he was crying, but he would cry and then he would grunt, and he would try to go back to like crying, and he was just struggling a little bit, it seemed, with his breathing. And I kept asking my midwives, like, is he okay? What's going on? What's happening? And essentially he wasn't transitioning well. And at the 2-hour mark after he was born, we actually, my main midwife kind of prepped me and was like, okay, if we're looking for these signs, and if we're not seeing any kind of improvement, we're gonna have to talk about the possibility of him being checked into the NICU and you guys needing to go to the hospital. And I was just like, no, like what? Like, this isn't supposed to be happening. And all of the things were not improving, and he was having a lot of trouble transitioning, and he was not able to latch. And both of my girls latched very quickly early on after they had been born, and he couldn't because he was struggling so much to breathe. And at that point we knew we would have to go in when he wasn't, you know, breathing very well. And he was losing color, he was getting really white. And it was just really scary as a parent to see your newborn baby like that, especially when you've already experienced what it looks like normally. And so yeah, anyways, when she told me that, I was like very upset, because I was, you know, I just had this amazing experience with my birth, and then everything kind of went south, and I was scared for my baby, and I was, you know, I had been scared for me as well, but I knew I was okay at that point, because they gave me the option of going with him in the ambulance, or staying here at the house, and Roberta would go with him. And I didn't want to go because, I mean, I didn't want him to go, but I didn't want to be the one like sitting up in a chair trying to recover from birth and stressed out about my baby. And I really wanted to rest, but at the same time I was like, I do not want to be separated from my baby. And so I made the choice to go, and they loaded us up into the ambulance, and it was very scary. It's scary to see your newborn baby just turn white. And this is a picture of him like right when he was born, and this is a picture of him in the ambulance when I was holding him. And they gave me a tube with oxygen to kind of hold over his nose and mouth while we rushed to the hospital, and Roberto followed us. And the next few days were just so hard. Like, they hooked him up to a bunch of different monitors, and I didn't tell anybody that we had Gabriel other than like really close friends and family, that we let them know because we wanted them to pray. And we didn't want to deal with like a bunch of messages like, is he okay? Like, you know, when we were just trying to like basically survive. And my girls went with my in-laws, and we didn't really get to say goodbye. So that was really hard on them, and the transition to home was very difficult after this whole thing happened because they didn't know why we had been gone for so many days and nights. And so we were in the hospital immediately after having him. But what was so amazing, and I'm so grateful, is that I didn't tear. And that was one thing that I tore with both of my girls, and that was one thing that I was really believing that it wouldn't happen this time, and it didn't. And I didn't tear, and I didn't need stitches. And I actually didn't even feel like I had had a baby. I was absolutely supernatural. I was a little bit sore in my uterus, and I was a little weak when we first got to the hospital. My husband was pushing me around in a wheelchair to and from the bathroom, you know, but I'm so grateful that I felt fine. Like, I literally told my husband, I was like, this is absolutely insane. I literally feel like I had a baby maybe a month ago. And I got my energy back, and I was just able to rest and sit in his room. They had like a couch, and they had a reclinable chair, and the first 2 nights we slept there. They put him on a CPAP machine. Right when we got there, they had oxygen up really high, like at almost 100% or something like that, and then they brought it down 100%. I don't know, it was just like a really high percentage of oxygen, and they brought it down gradually, and by the next afternoon, Monday afternoon, they had it down to like 30% or something, and then the next day, I think it was like within 36 hours or so, he had gotten off of the CPAP machine, and they put him on a nasal cannula, and then he had IVs in his hand. And at one point, this makes me so mad, like I'm so glad and grateful that hospitals exist, don't get me wrong. I'm grateful that hospitals are also there for women when they need to give birth in a hospital. I'm not against it. I am, however, very wary of procedures and things that they do. You just kind of have to be on your toes a lot of the time. And he had his IV in his hand at one point, and he kept crying. It had been like 3 days. I don't even remember if I had fed him at this point. I don't think I had. No, I hadn't fed him yet. But I was like pumping and stuff, and so anyways, needless to say, it was within the first few days he had the IV in his hand, and I knew something was wrong, and I knew something was hurting him, and he was just crying and crying and crying. And we were about to go, like in a few hours we were gonna go home and sleep, and I kept telling the nurses, like, hey, there's something wrong. I think it's his hand, like he keeps thrashing his hand around, and he keeps trying to grab at the IV with his other hand. And they're like, oh no, it's just because he's uncomfortable. But I knew something was up, and they didn't really listen to me. And I was like, okay, well, I was like, can you like at least like try to restrain his hand, because he has the needle in that hand. And they were like, yeah, we will. And so they like, I don't know what they did, but they like restrained his hand somehow. Well, throughout the night, and we weren't there that night, I think it was the first night we actually went home to sleep, or maybe it was the second night, I don't remember. But anyways, we came back in the morning, and he had an IV in his head, and I was like, what the heck happened, you know? He blew through the IV, and I was just so upset. That's like besides the point, but like, it's just kind of to show you how it was very traumatic. Like, the whole experience was absolutely traumatic, and it was really hard because we weren't able to bring the girls to meet him or anything. Addie hadn't even met him. We actually brought them up because they had signs up that said that you could visit from certain hour to certain hour. And when we got up there, they're like, oh no, you can't bring them up. I was like, what the heck? Like, change your signs then, because that's what it says. And they had changed it with COVID and didn't change the signs. And so that evening we came home, and I just like, I think it was Wednesday night, I just started sobbing my heart out. I went to the girls' room, and it was empty. You know, my children weren't here, and we were alone, and we had no idea when we would see. I'm okay, baby. It's okay. We had no idea when we would be able to be all home again. And that was like the hardest night, besides like when he was born and we took him. And I told Roberto, I said, I feel like the enemy has stolen so much from me. And because that first week, I always look forward to that first week with a newborn baby, when you're recovering and you're just snuggling in bed and you're getting to know your baby, you're feeding them. I hadn't even been able to feed him which thank God, like my milk came in and he was able to latch and everything was totally fine. But it was a lot to deal with, and I am so grateful that he is here. He's okay. I'm grateful for the staff who helped us, and there was just like one nurse in particular was so sweet and kind. And I said that, and then the next morning I woke up, I went to bed like I was sobbing, and then I went to sleep and didn't like let my sinuses drain. I woke up with my eyes like puffy, like so swollen. I looked like I had gotten punched in the face. And I found this post from someone that I'm subscribed to here on YouTube, and she had posted, like at the exact moment when I said, I feel like the enemy has stolen so much from me. She had posted this post. Basically, it was along the lines of, get up and take back what the enemy has stolen from you, and arise, basically. And I was like, babe, look at this. Like, she posted this right when I said, I feel like the enemy has stolen so much from me. And I was just absolutely floored. And I got up that morning and I said, devil, you get your hands off of my son. Because what had happened also was he was jaundiced, and they were thinking he would have to stay a few more days, and they just were not giving us clear answers as to when we could take him home. And we knew he was going to be okay. It's just, it was really hard to not have answers as to when we could bring our baby home. And that was the day where everything started improving, and I got to feed him. And I think I had either fed him the day before, or it was like this day, but it was like right around this point. And I was just amazed. Like, as a mom, as a parent, you have so much authority that God has given you to really, to just take back what the enemy has stolen from you, and to believe for something supernatural to happen. And so, regardless of what happened with my birth and with my son, in the few hours after he was born, it was nothing short of miraculous that he was able to transition well. And I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the video, but I had tested positive for GBS, and that was one of the things that they thought was going on. But they did a swab test, and they cultivated the what they collected, you know, and found out that it wasn't GBS, which was amazing, because if it had been GBS, we would have had to stay in the hospital for a very long time while he like recovered. But it wasn't that. It was just that he was having trouble transitioning, because here's the thing. Remember how they had changed my due date by like 3 weeks? Well, it turns out that he was born early, but my body went into labor naturally. So I had him at like technically like 37 weeks. And boys tend to have a little bit more of a difficult time transitioning than girls do, if they're born earlier rather than later.
Hey, Mommy.
Yes, honey?
You're singing.
Are you singing? Are you watching Dora now?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm doing well.
Okay. And so anyways, long story short, he wasn't born prematurely. He was just born a little early. And that's what caused the trouble breathing and everything. But here's the thing. I specifically, now that I know what I know, obviously you can only make decisions like this sometimes when you're looking back at things. I would have not taken the midwife's brew and seen if my labor stalled out, even if it had given me another week. That probably would have been better for Gabriel, because we were only in the hospital for like 5 days, but that's in hindsight. And really, you know, I talked about this multiple times with my midwives, and I was like, why did it happen, you know? And there really isn't a definitive answer as to why, because my body did go into labor naturally. I wasn't induced. We didn't do anything to try to speed things up besides the brew, but that was after the fact. So anyways, I'm just grateful that he's here. I'm happy to be back in YouTube. I've missed it so much. I've missed chatting with you guys and catching up and just all the things. But if you're here because of that video, thank you for being here. I knew this would be a hard video to film, just because like reliving all of the emotions that we went through that week. But he recovered so quickly, and Jesus is so good. He is so good. I'm so grateful for my little boy. I'm grateful for my girls, and happy days are ahead. And we've had lots of happy days since this whole ordeal happened, and I'm so grateful for the birth experience that I had. I'm so grateful that he is perfectly healthy and fine, and he's growing so quickly. He's a healthy boy. So anyways, I'm going to wrap up the video here. I don't even know how much footage I got because I had to stop it and restart, but I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here. It means so much to me as well. And I will see you guys very soon in another video. He started to grab my fingers this week. It is the cutest thing ever, like on his own. But anyways, I'll see you guys very soon in another video. We have lots of fun content coming up, mom stuff. If you saw one of my shorts recently, I'm actually like making over our entire house. I'm considering making another channel for that, but I'm not quite sure yet if I'm going to do that or not. So we'll see. But I'll see you guys very soon. You want to say bye? Say bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. We love you. Thank you for all the support, all the prayers. Bye.